No matter how you feel about any of the individuals I'm going to talk about in this video, not Tim or Ben, they're less so, but Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Alina Habba, and Dan Bongino. I like Dan. I like Kash. I don't know Pam Bondi. And I don't know Alina Habba, but I like what I see. That said, there are only two real possible scenarios that everybody seems to be overlooking. Yesterday, when the Department of Justice came out and boldly claimed that there would be no further investigation into the files or the island, and there was nothing to see here, okay, a lot of people felt a lot of different ways about it. Here's why I think Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Alina Habba should all be removed from whatever positions they're in. I know that's a bold statement. I know it's a strong statement. But there are only two scenarios. And by the way, for the leftoids who are like, yeah, but you're not implicating Trump. Yes, I am. Trump promised these files would be released, and he needs to address this. He needs to address this with the truth. And there are only two possible truths. The first is either the deep state destroyed all the files, and Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Alina Habba all lied to the American people. Or the files were not destroyed, and Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Alina Habba all lied to the American people. Now, so how do they lie? Well, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Alina Habba had all stated as a fact there were piles. Pam Bondi referred to a truckload, referred to over 250 victims. Alina Habba referred to flight logs and names and all sorts of stuff. If the files were destroyed, then they lied about having them. Okay? If the files were not destroyed, then they're lying about not having the files now. There are only two possible scenarios, and in both scenarios, these people are lying to us. Whether or not you believe it was destroyed, whether or not you believe that it wasn't destroyed, I will provide you verifiable evidence that they have lied to the American people. And Donald Trump is not, unscathed in this. It's a stain on his campaign, and he does need to address it. Either the files were destroyed, and then you immediately fire Dan, Kash, and Pam because they lied. They said they had the files. Or the files do exist, and the Department of Justice has gone rogue and closed the case. And in that case, you fire them. Donald Trump has the power to make this right. I'm not giving him a pass. Last night, Mike Cernovich implied that Kash, Dan, and Pam are all being discredited because this evidence was buried years ago. And Tim Pool agreed with him.
Kash and Dan are being largely discredited as well as Pam Bondi. So I have no idea what this is or what's really going on. I think the best estimate is, I think Cernovich was saying this. What do you think they were doing the past several years? The reason there's no evidence is not that Pam and Kash and Dan are covering it up. It's that the Democrats covered it up a long time ago.
Okay, let's say that's true. Then would you or would you not say that Pam Bondi lied?
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
So she's either lying here or they were destroyed. Either case, Pam Bondi is lying. Here's another lie.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have well over 250, actually.
250? Wow, who victimized them, Pam? Was it only Jeffrey? If so, then why didn't you say that? If you have 250 victims, then you must have at least one perpetrator. So is Jeffrey the sole perpetrator? You're either lying here or you're lying now. How about Alina Habba? We have flight logs, information, names that will come out. This is what Alina Habba said.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that.
So Alina Habba is either lying here. You guys get my, should I stop saying that? I just want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from. She's either lying here or she's lying now. That's, I mean, and then perhaps most predictable of all, here we have, former CIA officer comes out and says, well, the deep state probably destroyed all these files. This was last night.
I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look.
But why wouldn't they say that then? That's my point. That's my point, folks. If that's true, fine. Then why haven't they said that? Why did they instead say the opposite of that? They said that there's nothing in existence. They said that there's no evidence whatsoever that he was running a ring of absolute creeps. Why wouldn't they just say, well, the evidence is missing? That's not what they said. They said that there is no evidence. Even though less than 3 months ago, Pam Bondi, Alina Habba, and others, Kash and Dan to a lesser extent, but they built their entire career saying that this is the truth. And they have not come out to say, I was wrong. Here's Ben Shapiro.
We now have the answers.
Oh,
and the problem is this. People
me,
who
Ben.
never hedged their bets, people who never at any point suggested to you that they don't have data to back up the speculation, that the speculation was in and of itself the conclusion that if you speculate without evidence, that amounts to an actual conclusion to an investigation, they're going to be very upset today because it turns out that the DOJ and the FBI have concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and died by suicide.
He didn't have a client list. There's a billion articles written. Look at this here back from Ghislaine's trial. Ghislaine's fighting to prevent jurors from seeing a copy of Jeffrey's Little Black Book. This is an article from 2021. And by the way, who did she traffic them to? Were they all trafficked to Jeffrey?
According to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, again, does this put to bed like all inquiries? Of course not. People can continue to speculate as much as they want. And I think there's still open questions here regarding how did Epstein make his money?
Oh, but not about the trafficking, Ben. Could it have something to do with Ghislaine's mom's connection, Ghislaine's father's connection to the Mossad? Maybe that's why you don't want to bring it up, Ben. I'm getting so sick of this crap. Like, look, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in this one issue, the Trump administration has been wholly dishonest to us. And they should be held accountable for that.
Right, that's a very serious open question. And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are telling you, I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration, people you elected and put into these positions to get you the truth.
I didn't elect Kash Patel or Dan Bongino. Now, I thought they'd do a good job. I think I would have rather had Matt Gaetz as AG. I don't think we would have got this answer if it was Matt Gaetz. I'll never know because he couldn't keep it in his pants.
Thomas Matter are telling you that he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered. He did not keep a client list, and he did not blackmail powerful figures. Okay, right? That is the thing that they are saying. Not I. They are saying this.
But
if you're willing to throw that over and claim they're lying, then I'd like to see you present your evidence that they are.
So I just did that. So again, I will say, by the way, I'm fully willing to accept the fact that that Jeffrey did take his own life. I'm willing to concede that fact. Okay. He had a million reasons to do it. All right. What I am not willing to concede is the thousands of victims, the 250 plus that we know of that Pam Bondi explicitly named, who were there, Who were the perpetrators involved in those cases?
In fact, lying, because I know Dan. I don't think that Dan Bongino is lying to me.
I do think he's lying. Not only do I think he's lying, I know he's lying. Because he either lied when he said there was a list and there was this international whatever, or he lied now. So, Dan, you should pick which one you want to admit to then. Kash Patel. What happened to this Kash Patel?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right?
And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information, and the American public is going to get as much as we can release.
Which is nothing.
Himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I've seen your eyes. I've seen your body language when you talk about this stuff. I'm not saying that, maybe you weren't blackmailed. Maybe you weren't, they got some information on you. But Tim and Ben are like, hey, guys, the DOJ said this. It's not fair. You got to be fair.
I know Kash Patel a little bit. I don't think Kash Patel is lying to me.
He is lying.
I don't think these people are lying to me.
He is.
Which means that if somebody else continues to claim that they're lying, they ought to provide their evidence at this point.
I've done that. He is lying. He's either lying now or he's lying then. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi needs to be fired today. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have the opportunity to come out. I built my entire career. I ingratiated myself to the mega base by saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, and I was wrong. They could say that. They haven't said that, have they? They want to have their cake and eat it too. What was on Pam Bondi's desk? What was in the truckloads of information? As I tweeted, this is not a complex scenario. Either the deep state or the Democrats, whatever you want to say, destroyed all the files. I believe that that's possibly true, okay? Then Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Alina Habba all lied to the American people when they said they had them. Or the files were in fact not destroyed. And then Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Alina Habba all lied to the American people when they said the case was closed. These are the only two options. Donald Trump only knows what he knows. And I think he does need to come out. He's not escaping this. Alex Jones says, message of the president. Trump needs to respond to this political firestorm if he wants to be true to his supporters. I agree. So no, I disagree with Tim that these guys are being unfairly smeared. And I disagree with Ben that we should just listen to the DOJ because Trump put them in charge. This is ludicrous. I hope you were informed by this video. I'm not going to let this story go. Make sure to leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe or follow down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.